Okay, I'm all caught up on my distant learning overviews that I was doing for you guys. So I'm going to catch up on my reading now. I'm so sad that I read, had some videos made that my granddaughter helped me read. And I tried my hardest to get those working, and I just couldn't get them working. So I'm going to have to reread them. Hopefully, she'll be back with me next week. And even if we're done with this book, she can help me read because I really enjoyed that and I look forward to it. And looked forward to see having you guys see her reading too. Um, so I'm going to start the next section of the tale of Despereaux. And when we finished off, it was when the queen died, and it was her last words when the rat fell in the soup. And her last words were "There's a rat in my soup." So now we're going to read chapter 22. He puts his heart together again. And there's Rascuro. I will have something beautiful, and I will have revenge. So here he is. This is part of the chapter. And when I get to it, you'll recognize that picture then. Rascuro hurried from the banquet hall. "A rat," he said. He put a paw over his heart. "I am a rat, and there is no light for rats. There will be no light for me." The king's men were still bent over the queen. The king was still shouting, "Save her! Save her!" And, and the queen was still dead, of course, when Roscuro encountered the queen's royal soup spoon lying on the floor. "I will have something beautiful," he said aloud. "I am a rat, but I will have something beautiful. I will have a crown of my own." He picked up the spoon. He put it on his head. There's the picture that I showed you just a little bit ago. "Yes," said Roscuro, "I will have something beautiful, and I will have the revenge. Both things, somehow." There are those hearts, readers, that never mend again once they are broken. Or if they do mend, they heal themselves in a crooked and lopsided way, as if sewn together by a careless craftsman. Such was the fate of Chiaroscuro. His heart was broken. Picking up the spoon and placing it on his head, speaking of revenge, these things helped him put his heart together again. But it was, alas, put together wrong. "Where's the rat?" shouted the king. "Find that rat!" "If you want me," muttered Roscuro as he left the banquet hall, "I will be in the dungeon, in the darkness." Chapter 23, Consequences. There were, of course, dire consequences of Roscuro's behavior. Every action, reader, no matter how small, has a consequence. For instance, the young Roscuro gnawed on Gregory the jailer's rope, and because he gnawed on the rope, a match was lit in his face. And because a match was lit in his face, his soul was set on fire. The rat's soul was set afire, and because of this he journeyed upstairs, seeking the light. Upstairs in the banquet hall, the Princess Peace spotted him and called out the word "rat." And because of this, Roscuro fell into the queen's soup. And because the queen fell into the queen's soup, the queen died. You can see, can't you, how everything is related to everything else? You can see quite clearly how every action has a consequence. For instance, if, reader, you'll indulge me and allow me to continue this mediation on consequences. Because the queen died while eating soup, the heartbroken king outlawed soup. And because soup was outlawed, so were all the instruments involved in the making and eating of soup, soups and bowls and kettles. These things were collected from all the people of the kingdom of Dor, and they were piled in the dungeon. And because Rescuro was dazzled by the light of one match and journeyed upstairs and fell into the queen's soup, and the queen died, the king ordered the death of every rat in the land. The king's men went bravely into the dungeon to kill the rats. But the thing about killing a rat is that you must find a rat. And if a rat does not want to be found, reader, he will not be found. The king's men succeeded only in getting lost in the dungeon's tortuous mazes. Some of them, in fact, did not ever find their way out again and died in there in the dark heart of the castle. And so the killing of all rats was not successful. And in desperation, King Philip declared that rats were illegal. He declared them outlaws. This, of course, was a ridiculous law, as rats are outlaws to begin with. How can you outlaw an outlaw? It is a waste of time and energy. But still, the king officially decreed that all rats in the kingdom of Dor were outlaws and should be treated as such. When you are a king, you may make as many ridiculous laws as you like. That is what being a king is all about. But, reader, we must not forget that King Philip loved the queen, and that without her he was lost. This is the danger of loving. No matter how powerful you are, no matter how many kingdoms you rule, you cannot stop those you love from dying. Making soup illegal, outlawing rats, those things soothe the poor king's heart, and so we must forgive him. And what of the outlawed rats? What of one outlawed rat in particular? What of Chiaroscuro? In the darkness of the dungeon, he sat in his nest with the spoon on top of his head. He set to work fashioning for himself a kingly cape made out of a scrap of red tablecloth. As he worked, old one-eared Botticelli Rimorso sat next to him, swinging his locket back and forth, saying, "You see what comes from a rat going upstairs? I hope that you've learned your lesson. Your job in this world is to make others suffer." "Yes," muttered Rescuro. "Yes, that's exactly what I intend to do. I will make the princess suffer for how she looked at me." As Rescuro worked and planned, the jailer Gregory held tight to his rope and made his own way through the darkness. In a dank cell, the prisoner, who had once had a red tablecloth and now had nothing, spent his days and nights weeping quietly. High above the dungeon, upstairs in the castle, a small mouse stood alone one evening with his brothers and sisters, sniffed for crumbs. He stood with his head cocked to one side, listening to a sweet sound he did not yet have a name for. There would be consequences of the mouse's love for music. You, reader, know already some of those consequences. Because of music, the mouse would find his way to a princess. He would fall in love. And speaking of consequences, the same evening that Despereaux stood inside the castle, hearing the music for the first time, outside the castle, in the gloom of dusk, more consequences drew near. A wagon driven by king's soldiers and piled high with spoons and bowls and kettles was making his way to the castle. And beside the soldier there sat a young girl with ears that looked nothing so much as pieces of cauliflower stuck to one either side of her head. The girl's name, reader, was Miggery Sow, and though she did not know it yet, she would be instrumental in helping the rat work his revenge. That's the end of the second book. So the next book the third, Gore, the Tale of Miggery Sow. All right, that will be our next reading for tomorrow. Have a wonderful afternoon or morning or whenever you're watching this. Um, I think I'm going to record a few more just so I have them ready to go. Okay, so you're probably going to see me in the same clothes in some of these videos. And it's not because I didn't change, it's just because I'm just catching up on stuff. All right, bye. Love you.